Hello, welcome everyone, and let's quickly attend to VOC 110. So our newbies, this is the first session. We suppose that you have gone through VOC 100. Okay, so VOC 110 is Introduction to Vocal Music, and this is ReHearsal House Nigeria Music Academy, by the way. So in VOC 100, just to do a quick recap, that is more like getting started with vocal music. One of the things or the major highlights which VOC 100 covered for us is to get started, you have to know what your voice range is like. That is how you get to know your voice type. So our own understanding, because we are learning and instructing vocal music from a practical perspective, and touching upon every aspect of music theory as much as we can by God's grace and help. See how we apply and appreciate all our theories into practical considerations. Okay, so that is essentially what we have for our VOC 100. Okay, so just a moment. Let's our recording setup is it started now? Okay, VOC 100 is a preliminary foundational course for vocal music, and of course this applies to those of us in recording artistry as well as those of us in vocals, or even those taking a vocal course more like a minor, like those in music directing, music production. You have to do some minor courses in vocals, so this concerns you as well. So VOC 100 basically essentially it's getting started with singing, and the key thing which VOC 100 addresses, there are just two primary or essential aspects VOC 100 gets to cover. That is, you have to know what is your voice type, and that essentially is more like a clinical first vocal clinic session. So, but before that clinic, there is a theory that precedes that. Before the clinic, you have to know that voice type is measured, subjective voice type here. Now, we're not so much looking at, because it's a range, okay? So, we're not so particular that everybody must fall within that range. If you're a soprano singer, you must fall within C4 to C6. No. It's a window. It's possible for you to overlap from soprano to mezzo soprano in the depths, that's in your lowest note region, and sometimes even to go beyond the C6, all right? And not to even mention that we have various blends of sopranos, various tessituras of sopranos, but that is not much of what we are going into here. Just the recap. So your voice type is your first session. You have to learn the theory. How do you measure it? How do you first find your lowest note or your least depth, and the interval from your lowest note to your highest pitch? That is your voice range. Okay, now your voice range is what will help us to determine your voice type. Your voice type is not necessarily, it's not what you say sometimes in choir, the part you sing. No, not necessarily. But as a matter of fact, any voice type, you just need to move the octave, the range, the pitch range to a convenient range of a voice type, and they would be able to sing any of those parts of harmony. So we're talking here about voice type. That is a measure or a function of your vocal range. That is the lowest notes to the highest pitch. For instance, an objective or typical soprano lowest note will be C4 and the highest note will be C6. Okay, so that is essentially what an objective soprano would have. Okay, so but like I've mentioned, it's a window. So this is all under VOC 100. The second aspect, very important. The essence of this recap is just in case you have not gone through this clinic session and you are in this class, you have to pay attention to this. You need to go through the clinic session on voice type, measuring your voice type, and then you have to also go through the second one, which is how to sing. That is basically open throat. Okay, open throat or diaphragmatic singing. Okay, now of course under here, open throat, we talk about the singing cycle or singer's breath cycle. Okay, so from inhalation, air intake, to note uptake, to note release, which also is accompanied by air release, then gets all the way to support, and then the cycle goes through and through again. So of course, the two essential theories in VOC 100, your voice type theory and your open throat theory, and two essential clinic sessions: the measure of your voice type, that's your vocal range, as well as learning how to do the correct singing, sing properly, open throats, okay? That's singing from the diaphragm. That is learning not so much how to control the air now, but how to do the inhalation, intake of air, uptake of notes, and release of notes accompanied with release of air. So that is the two essential clinic sessions there. Okay, so then here we are coming to the first part of VOC 110. As you can see, it is the first session, so session 1. And the first part of VOC 110 is evolution of vocal artistry. Let me quickly explain the purpose or importance of a lesson on vocal artistry. Now, vocal music has totally transitioned, changed. Okay, so you are not in that era again where it just suffices to say I can sing. There is somewhat, there are singers and there are artists. Okay, so artistry has to do with interpretation of ideas, of musical ideas. Now, when we interpret musical ideas, we are not just opening in vocal music. We're not just opening our mouth and singing. If for instance, I want to apologize to you because I've probably hurt you, there is a way I would present or tender my apology, and it's not going to be heartfelt, and you would know that this man does not mean any bit of this. I'm sorry. Okay, just sorry. But there's a way I would tender my apology. I'm so sorry, and then you know that this guy actually means this, and a person who is really apologizing, you almost forgive them before the apology drops to the ground. Okay, so now that is the thing about interpretation. In music, in artistry, it is so important. It is actually what musicians or your producer would be referring to as soul most often when he's going to say, I can feel the soul, sing with soul, or this person sings with soul. In basic essence, it's talking about interpretation, that we can hear the meaning of the song just from the way your voice expresses that song. If you are singing, I'm so sorry for the things I've done, and you really mean that you are so sorry for the things you have done, we would feel it. You can sing, I'm so sorry for the things I've done, and your mind is half-hearted. You're half-hearted about it, or you're not there at all. And you can sing, I'm so sorry for the things I've done, and it's the voice. Boy, it's the same instrument, but one has the faculties of the soul present in expressing that, because the faculties of the human soul are very, very much involved. The music, you can't place your finger upon sound to say that you touch it. You can describe it. We can talk about frequencies of sounds and so on, but many of these things about music, it's resting within your feeling part, the part of you that feels, not your body, not the material, so to speak, part of you. So it is the soul or soulical part of you. All right. So because of that, it is very important to understand that when you are interpreting music, it is so much around it has to do with soul, that faculty called the soul. Now, the soul can be profitable, positive, and it can be destructive, not to even say negative. It can be destructive. The soul can function to any particular point that it is subjected to. For instance, if the soul of a man who is so consumed with the animalistic part of his being, that is the material part of his being, is that which dictates to the soul. Okay, the lust of his eyes is what dictates to the soul its relevance, its meaning, what is important to it. Then the soul is going to perform, yielding to that particular part of the being, of the human entity that it is subject to. If the soul, on the other hand, is somewhat of a subjected one to the spirits and the faculties of the spirit, then it's going to also yield to that. So the soul on its own, it's going to take up a form that the person, the man himself, overall is. Let's not so much dwell on that. So that is vocal artistry, where it comes in. You're dealing with interpretation. You're dealing with the art of conveying message. And in this regard, we want to first see what approach, technique to learning these things that we are adopting for this level of course is the common sense approach. We are not going to go so much into some research, heavy research or science related thing here. Now we will just look at common sense. That is this: how do we begin to sing? How does singing occur in nature naturally? You would notice, if we pay attention to day-to-day experiences, we will notice something that basically happens with singing. A mother gives birth to a child, and she doesn't need to be an artist, a musician, or anything, but instinctively the child is crying. The mother sings to the child. Bathing the child, they sing to the child. So it's an innate thing, an innate instinct, instinctive response to circumstance or stimuli, as we put it down here. So there is something that just you respond to, and you produce or reply to that response by singing. Okay, so that is essentially what we mean here, and that is where it begins from. So at this point, in the history of vocal music, every person, it had nothing to do with whether you want to make a special case of selling a record or anything. You were not even particular about techniques. Techniques never have anything to do here. The mother that is singing for the child doesn't really bother about technique. The worshiper who wants to sing and worship God in his heart does not bother about technique. It's the heart of thanksgiving. If he's thankful at heart, he begins to sing, and if he's penitent, he begins to sing and sometimes cry and weep in the course of it. And circumstance, that's response to a particular circumstance, gives birth to his singing. And many a time, some of those things are hearty singing, quite hearty singing, because it is real, it is not faked. You have to pay attention to some of these things, because all the way through this study, especially for those of us in recording artistry, we will be coming to touch and mention some of these things. Real. It is not fake, because the circumstances are real. You get it. The lyrics are spontaneous in some cases. The person did not really, the mother is not sometimes singing a lyric that is written by somebody. They just burst into their own lyric and start singing that heartily. Okay, so now, but keep in mind, it is innate, it is instinctive, but essentially it is a response. It is response to circumstance. And by the way, this is where vocal music began from. A response to environmental or inward stimuli, circumstance, and then bursting forth into songs or tunes, melodies at that. Sometimes it is without words, but melody. And da 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 da, and all of that happens rather instinctively. Now let's move further from there. Vocal music develops to a particular point, and while we move here, there is a transition I want us to pay attention to. Certain things happen that are also instinctive, but they are beginning to be purpose-driven. Even here, the mother singing for the child is towards a goal so that the child would sleep. Now, you know, we classify those songs now as lullaby, but imagine a mother is singing some hardcore rap, hip-hop, or pop, R&B, Afrobeat song for the child that you want to sleep. You know what that means. Purpose is totally out of it. That's not going to work. You're playing the right music for the wrong occasion, just like in Fighting Temptation. The guy said this man's aunt is about to be Margot's food. You're playing the wrong music for the occasion. Okay, so that is how it is. So, but something here about this purpose is unique purpose. In this case, there is a particular need. A man is in love and wants to sing a song. He believes he can sing. He has a good voice and he can truly impress his bride with his voice. So he writes a love song, a pure love song. I mean, real one, okay? Because it is real love in this context now, and not fake. So you see now where we're coming from. So when it's real, he doesn't need to go through many difficulties trying to learn how to express it. You don't learn how to express a genuine apology. It comes truly. Okay, when it's fake, boy, you've got to do a lot of learning of it. And I hope we can relate some of these things to where we are, to some of the challenges musical artists, vocal artists, vocalists have in your performances. A first challenge is this word here, because it is not real. you have to act and learn and practice and try to put up a face, something that is not. And of course, you have that in the music art industry a lot. You can perfect it. That is actually what acting is about. It is playing a part that you are not. Okay, so we'll get to all that later on. So, but now there is some deeper purpose. There is consciousness. It is not spontaneous. Here, it is spontaneous reaction. So, but here it is now deliberate. It is towards a goal, okay, a purpose that is not just our basic day to day. Someone has to sing, for instance, for the coronation of a king. A king is going to be coronated, and you have to sing, and that is specific, that's occasion. You see, so therefore there is need to understand what manner of culture, what manner of environment am I going to be singing for, and how will this performance, what do I need to have? And in this case now, in this context, you begin to see things like costumes come in. You need to dress in a particular way that would relate, that your dressing should be able to pass the message, the meaning, remember, interpretation of that event. You have to be able to capture it in all forms of expression, drama and actings and dispositions, demeanors, all of that become very important. So you see eye looks, you see gestures, and all of that comes in because you've moved from just that point where it is not a special occasion, no special moments in the natural instinctive thing. But here you're coming from instinct to needs, instinct to needs, to demand. Okay, so at this point, you're beginning to have the demand and supply come into the picture. So what is the need? What is the goal? What is the occasion? If it is a wedding, if it is a marriage feast, you don't want to sound like it is a funeral. You see, so if the meaning, if the message of the song is nostalgic, if it's something that is supposed to take the people back to remembrance of probably, so to speak, so-called good old days, then there is a technique you could have that would actually betray the whole thing. So artistry, it's a function of two things. You have to have a good arsenal of techniques, yes, but you have to have wisdom or experience of knowledge. And what that means here is this, that you have to know what technique aptly conveys the message, fulfills what. So not every technique serves a particular function. So this is some of the things which we in the program, we have to be very fortified about, properly understand, so that in your workshop or your clinic moments, you'll be able to know what you want to do. And here we begin to look at the first appeal for technique. The moment spatial need comes in, the moment demand and supply comes in, there is a particular technique that is going to solve the problem, that is going to convey the message. As someone's deep down in emotions, feeling down and feeling like all hope is gone, and I want to lift them up with my singing. I don't want them to feel down no more, but how do I do that if my music and my melody and my gestures and everything is doing the reverse? You see, there again, that soul thing comes in. if your mind is not there, if you do not know what technique is going to do that. So there are points when the technique has to be there. You see that? Because it has to express a particular thought. And there are times when I have to sing softly, no edges in my voice. And there are times when the transitions from register to register, all of these things is the function or question of what is the goal, what is the purpose, where is it going to? That is actually interpretation. If you do not have, whether it's in all fairness, all genres of music, whether it is rap music even, whether it is trap music, it's just the trouble, big trouble in our day is that muse is lost. Muse, our word for music is derived from the word muse. It means abstraction, meditate, think, ponder, or cellar. It essentially means someone is being entertained and yet all their faculties are alive, not shut down. When you're listening to music and you can't think about what is this person or this song saying or doing to me, boy, there's no muse there. You have a muse happening. That is more of a music than it is music. So because many of these things are gone, we just get into the studio and jump on beats. The beat is going on. People are going to dance to beats. Rhythm is basically what you have going on most of the cases now. And so meaning is lost. Society is a true reflection of it. So, but then, let's not dwell there so much. Now, we move from instinct to needs. And we've talked about demand and supply, talked about purpose and all that. Then, hearing comes our first dilemma. That is evolution, remember, how this thing is, how we are coming to what we call voice training. Why do I need voice training? Why do I need vocal coaching and all that? There's a journey. If you're here doing music for this purpose, you don't need anything. You just, in fact, this level of music does not needs to stay away from this in a good sense. It needs to stay away from some very heavy technique, because the moment you're bringing this now, you're bringing in expressions, you're bringing in drama, you're bringing in a lot of actings, and sometimes your actings, when we say acting is playing a part, it does not mean again that it's totally negative, that is totally wrong. There are many, I'm teaching now, and there are many actings. You can't count how many gestures I've had here and there. Okay, now smile, now that, and all that. And now all of this, that a whole lot of scripts. I'm not following a documented script anyway, but instinctively it comes out, you get. So there is that acting that has to be in the whole thing. But if I were with my little baby right now and we're having daddy children moment, there is no caution, there is no carefulness, none of these things are here. You're just enjoying you get dirty, you enjoy your world. There's no care for a second eye. But the moment a second eye, a second ear needs to hear your song, you need to put it out for some persons to hear. You're not here. No matter how you want to push it, it's no longer there, because you are particular about what works. Okay, you are particular about what works. So now our first dilemma here, if you are going to meet certain technique, meet certain interpretations, you're going to need certain technique. And if there are no microphones in the era of natural amplification, when there were no microphones, no electronic means to amplify the voice. You notice that not every technique can actually be heard. Not every technique can be heard. Sing to a group of 1,000 people, and imagine that I have to sing like I'm speaking, cause you don't know what I've been through. Oh, no, you don't know. Now I have to speak softly or sing softly. Okay, now, but that cannot be heard without the microphone. So, dilemma for our class of demand and supply. The first dilemma there is that natural amplification, the absence of it, seems to be the fall of a lot of techniques. So many techniques would be dependent, would need to be amplified for everybody, so to speak, to hear, for a whole crowd concert, in a concert to hear. So, and before microphones, there were definitely no way you could amplify those techniques. So immediately it's led to the genesis of the classification of sounds. So sounds had to be classified into taught sounds, untaught sounds. The sounds which could be naturally amplified without, and everybody will hear, because, by the way, what is the objective of the whole thing? Is to be heard. Now, when we say to be heard, it does not mean this passive hearing, okay? To be heard actually means to receive the message. That is what it means. So, and that is the goal. That is what it was about, to receive the message. Okay, so, and once people cannot hear it already, they cannot understand it. To understand, you have to hear the stuff, then you can understand, talk of understanding. And when you talk of understanding, you can talk about receiving the message. You get that? So, that is it. That is our first session on the evolution of vocal artistry. It's not, by no means, not the end. It's just the beginning session, or session number 1. So, like we do it, the lesson notes would also be posted on our Google Classroom, and you go through the videos for those not on the site class, and then we interact in the course of our weekday interactions and our blog interactions. We interact concerning these topics and share what we understand and what we do not understand about it. Okie dokie, thank you. Perfect. Mcsnup is my name, for those who haven't quite gotten familiar with the tutor yet. Alrighty, thank you, friends.